Welcome back to another week of the MLB Week 8 Power Rankings. You can see already, Tigers, after a brutal week, everyone going to the IL and didn't play any good baseball until Sunday night. They're dropping 6 spots where the Philadelphia Phillies look like there's some life back into that team as they move up 4 spots. But before we get into the upcoming week, we got to talk about last week. 2 call-ups, Spencer Jones, Robbie Snelling, big prospects for the Yankees and the Marlins get called up this week. So let's see how their starts to the year pan out after last week's showing on the weekend. Dating back to early in the week, Framber Valdez suspended for throwing at Trevor Story after giving up 9 runs. It is what it is, 7 games. He's going to get pushed back to a few starts for his start later in the week. Cleveland making a huge trading for catcher Patrick Bailey for the 29th pick this year in the draft and top prospect Matt Tugboat Wilkinson. Love the trade for Cleveland. They need catching help, and they aren't afraid to go out and make a deal this early. With the Giants, kind of looks like they're going to start the slow process of a rebuild if this is the case. Maybe get some big contracts off the books in the later months, maybe June, July, who knows? And then you have, unfortunately, 2 passings, Bobby Cox and Braves owner Ted Turner passing away in the age of 80s. Obviously, what they did for the game is huge. Braves, especially for both these guys. So, pray for their families. And then Jacob Mizorowski recorded the fastest pitches ever by a starter against the Yankees. I mean, he was up to 103.6, just absolute electric. Yankees couldn't touch him. So he was on one on Saturday. And week 7 IL, never a good sign. To the IL, I mean, not good. Tarek Skubal, Gleyber Torres for the Tigers, Cronenworth, Campensano for the Padres, the Rays lose Steven Matz, Pagan for the Reds, Correa done for the year and could be done for a while. Matthew Boyd back on the IL for the Cubs, Roman Anthony for the Red Sox, Cade Povich, Jason Dominguez, Cole Reagans, Jake Mangum, Glasnow for the Dodgers, and Travis d'Arnaud for the Angels. Reinstated from the IL, it's going to be Jackson Chourio and Andrew Vaughn from Milwaukee. Atlanta gets Sean Murphy and Raciel Iglesias back. Yanner Diaz and Nick Allen for Houston. Duran's back. So Philly gets even more weapons as they look to play some better baseball. McKinstry comes back for Detroit, which feels like the only guy coming back for Detroit at this point. Kirby Yates is back for the first time this year for the Angels for some much needed bullpen help. Sonny Gray comes back after a brief IL stint. Nick Lodolo makes his debut. Addison Barger makes his debut. Blake Snell, of course, makes his debut along with Carlos Rondon. In the AL standings, the Rays actually jump the Yankees by tiebreakers here. 26 and 13. Rays are just on fire. Best team in baseball record-wise right now. Like I said, the Yankees still playing some really good baseball, but just didn't go well against Milwaukee. Blue Jays, Orioles, Red Sox going to stay put right under 500. Talk about 500. That's the whole AL Central and worse. They're all stuck there with 5 games, 3 games under 500, besides the Guardians at the top at number 1. White Sox at number 2 in the standings at this point in this season. I think a lot of White Sox fans would take that, where, a lot of teams are having down years in the Central. And the AL West is the exact same as the AL Central, except the Athletics are actually over 500 by 2 games. Everyone else under by 2 or 3 games. And the Angels and Astros bringing up the rear this year, which kind of already feels like a lost year for the Astros. Then moving to the National League, the Braves are just running away with the NL East, a commanding 9-game lead over the Phillies, who are coming back to life. Maybe they're going to give the Braves a run for their money later in the season. But they're tied with the Marlins and the Nationals for second place in the division, while the Mets bring up the rear. NL Central still is insane. Cubs are 4.5, 4 games, something like that. Bad at quick math. Over the Brewers and the Cardinals and the Pirates and the Reds, all over 500. So this division is still playing some really good baseball. NL West, you have the Padres overtaking the Dodgers due to tiebreakers. So give the Padres some credit here for actually leading this division, which feels like for the first time in a while, where the Diamondbacks, Giants, and Rockies all under 500 here. 26 through 30, teams you expect at this point already, because the Mets kind of really haven't dug themselves out of that hole they created early. Rockies fall. Angels, decent week. They move up 2 after winning that series against Chicago. Twins move up 1 as well after beating Cleveland on the road. And then the Giants actually fall back 1 after losing to San Diego. And they did beat Pittsburgh in the series, which was a little bit of a surprise. 21 through 25, you get some teams here that, unfortunately, their seasons might start to be in panic mode with the Astros and the Red Sox. Astros losing Correa. Never a good sign there as they get a huge week this week as they play Seattle and Texas, two teams ahead of them in their division. Got to win those series if this team wants to claw back. Red Sox, kind of the same way. You get teams that are right around where you are in the Phillies, and going to Atlanta in the weekend is going to be a tough series for them. So the Red Sox hopes of getting back to 500 is kind of going to be a long shot this week if they want to make that happen. Nationals at 25 beat Minnesota in a series, lost to Miami on the road. They go to Cincinnati before they return home against Baltimore. White Sox, what they're doing slowly but surely, this team is finding ways to win ball games. Pitching has been really good for them, which has been a surprise. Obviously, Murakawa has been the guy in this lineup along with Colson Montgomery, and they get the Royals here at home, which they could maybe steal that series. And against the Cubs, you never know what's going to happen when the Cubs come to town in the South Side. So that's always makes up for a good series there. And the Marlins at 21. Move down 2 spots after losing the game on Monday to the Phillies. They lose the series to Baltimore and do beat the Nationals in a good weekend series there before they travel up to Minnesota and then return home to Florida to face Tampa in Tampa. 16 through 20, you find your two biggest movers here with the Tigers falling from 10 to 16 after just an abysmal week. Everyone goes on the IL. People get suspended. Just not a good look there for the Tigers this week. They go 1-5, salvage the Sunday game, Sunday night baseball game against the Royals on the road. Gage Workman has to be the hero. In his first Tigers at bat, hits a home run, takes the lead, and is enough for the Tigers to hold on as Jansen gets another save. They go to New York to face the Mets in a much-needed series to kind of get this team back on paper. But the Mets, they get a team that comes to town that isn't playing some good baseball. Maybe that could propel them to get a big series win there. So definitely an early week series you want to watch out for as the Tigers get the Blue Jays at home, which is always a great America over Canada rivalry because those two teams are so close to each other. Mariners at 17. Ho-hum 3-3 week, beat Atlanta in a series which was huge, could carry that momentum into Chicago, but that wasn't the case as they lose that series. They go to Houston and return home for San Diego in some two series that the Mariners fans are going to have big series this week. Royals, like I mentioned, beat Detroit in the series, split with Cleveland early in the week. They go to Chicago and then to St. Louis this week. So the Royals definitely have a good chance to get over 500 or close to 500 this week. Same for the Phillies, 3 in Boston, 3 in Pittsburgh. They're out east, not too far from home, but on the road as the Phillies look to keep things rolling here since they fired Rob Thompson. And then the Orioles staying put at 20 after a series win in Miami, returned home, didn't win the series against the A's, but just took 1 of 3, and they get the Yankees this week. So maybe they could steal a series here from the Yankees, who are playing some good baseball up until that Milwaukee series last weekend. 11 through 15, not really much to report here. 2-4, 3-3, 3-4, all these teams last week. The only thing I would look out for here is Toronto. This team is playing some better baseball. If you throw away that Tampa Bay series, this team is playing some good baseball. They get a chance to get their revenge this week as they get them at home before they go to Detroit. I will say the Rangers are slowly but surely starting to play some better baseball together. Like I mentioned last week, if this team goes 3-3 or better, I think they can be happy with it with the week going into New York and then getting Chicago at home. That's exactly what they did. So staying put right where they are isn't always a bad thing as they get Arizona and in Houston for the weekend series. Now 6 through 10, kind of the same thing here. Cardinals still meh week, 3-3. Padres 4-3. They overtake the Dodgers. That's why they're ahead of them here in my rankings as well. Dodgers at 8, Reds at 9 after an abysmal showing at the beginning of the week. They responded well, returning home, winning that series against the Astros. And the A's move up one just because, well, the Tigers really had a bad week last week. But the Dodgers at 8 kind of feels like a crime with how good they have been playing. But I don't know. Right now, we know they can play a lot better than they're playing right now. And they just really haven't shown that to me, especially losing that series in Atlanta. That's kind of one of those series where, like, if you want to be the best team in baseball, and you got to show it to me in that series, especially at home, and they didn't. But definitely a lot easier for them this week. 4 against San Francisco at home, 3 against the Angels across town. Padres, tough week for them. 3 in Milwaukee, 3 in Seattle. So could have the Dodgers on top of this division when it's all said and done this time next week. And 1 through 5, these 5 teams all stay the same in the top 5, but a little bit of movement here. The Rays move up 2 after a dominant week, sweeping Toronto, beating Boston on the road as they are 21-12 or 21-13, I believe it is. after just taking care of business against some division opponents as they return to Toronto before they return home against Miami. Cubs at 3 sweep the Reds, which in a huge series for them, really propel them up the standings. They do unfortunately lose the series to Texas on the road, which Cubs are having problems on the road, but at home, I mean, this team feels like they're unstoppable. I think it's still 15 straight that they've won at home, and that won't change this week as they're all on the road in Atlanta before they return to home to Chicago, but play on the south side. Brewers move up 1-4 after sweeping the Yankees. Of course, the Yankees are going to fall behind the Brewers after that series. And this is the Brewers' way. They find ways to split series, win series barely, and then that's what they did this week. Beat the Pod. Now, if they can beat the Padres at home, this Brewers team might be top 3 next week with the way they are playing before they go to Minnesota. Braves, we'll talk to them first here before we get to the Yankees at 1. Went into Seattle, lost that series, their first series loss of the year, and then you go into LA and you're like, well, uh-oh, this might be where things start to slide a little bit. That's not the case. They go into Los Angeles, beat the Dodgers. Spencer Strider looks great. Bryce Eldridge looks great. Chris Sale even looked great, but just no run production on Friday. So this Braves team keeps on finding ways to win games on the road against really good teams. Now they return home against the Cubs in a great early week series to really see where both these teams are at this point in the season, especially the Cubs, because with how bad they've been on the road, let's see if they can piece a few together. And the Braves get the Red Sox here at home in the weekend series. Then the last team is the Yankees at number 5. Beat Baltimore in the Monday game. They beat Texas at home in a series, and you're thinking going to Milwaukee, this team could definitely win this series. They didn't even win a game. Get swept on the road. Couldn't figure out Mizorowski and any other pitching for the Brewers. Bright side, Spencer Jones, they get called up, so there's some hope there for the Yankees, but they are still on the road as they go into Baltimore, which will be a good early week series. And then they return home to New York, but they are playing the Mets, and which will be an interesting Subway Series this year. That's all I got for you here, week 8 of my power rankings. Check back next week to see if your team's moving up or moving down or staying the same. Until next time, the Bench Buddies are out.